The crack of a rifle echoed through the dusty Wyoming town of Sweetwater, causing Vivian Keller to flinch as she swept the front porch of her late father's general store. The sound was an unwelcome reminder that civilization in 1875 was still tenuous at best, especially since her father's passing 3 months prior had left her at the mercy of her older brother, Benjamin. "Get inside, Vivian," Benjamin called from the doorway, his voice slurred from the whiskey he'd been drinking since sunrise. "Got business to discuss." Vivian tucked a strand of auburn hair behind her ear and reluctantly followed her brother inside, the floorboards creaking beneath her modest blue calico dress. At 22, she had been running the store almost entirely on her own since their father took ill last winter, while Benjamin gambled away what little profits they made. The interior of Keller's general store smelled of coffee, leather, and tobacco scents that once brought her comfort, but now felt suffocating under Benjamin's mismanagement. 3 men stood near the counter, their appearances marking them as cattle drivers passing through town. The oldest among them, a heavy-set man with a gray-flecked beard, eyed Vivian with unconcealed interest. "This the girl?" the man asked, chewing on a toothpick. Benjamin nodded, pouring himself another drink. "My sister. Pretty as a picture and knows how to keep house. Been running this store near single-handed too." Vivian froze, her stomach knotting as she realized what was happening. "Benjamin, what is this?" Her brother avoided her gaze. "Mr. Fletcher here's looking for a wife. Offered to take over my gambling debts if I can convince you to go with him to his ranch in Montana." "You're trying to sell me." Vivian's voice rose in disbelief. The room seemed to spin around her as anger and fear competed for dominance. "Now don't think of it like that, Mr. Fletcher said, stepping forward. "I'm offering a fair arrangement. Got 300 acres, a decent house, need a woman's touch and someone to help with the books." "I'm not for sale," Vivian said firmly, though her voice trembled. "Father left this store to both of us, not just you." Benjamin's face darkened. "Father's dead and I'm head of the family now. Fletcher's offered to clear $500 of debt. You'll have a roof over your head and food on your table. What more could you want, my freedom?" Vivian whispered, backing toward the door. The bell above the entrance jingled, drawing everyone's attention as a tall figure ducked through the doorway. Vaughn Pierce removed his hat, revealing sun-streaked brown hair and a face weathered by years under the open sky. Though not yet 30, his eyes held the steady gaze of a man who had seen his share of hardship. "Afternoon," he said, his deep voice filling the tense room. "Need some supplies for the journey north." "We're in the middle of something here, Pierce," Benjamin snapped. "Wait outside." Vaughn's eyes moved from Benjamin to Vivian, noting her distress and the way Fletcher was looking at her. He'd known the Kellers for years, having stopped at their store whenever his cattle drives passed through Sweetwater. Old man Keller had been fair and honest, qualities the son clearly lacked. "Everything all right, Miss Keller?" Vaughn asked, ignoring Benjamin's dismissal. "It's family business," Benjamin interjected before Vivian could respond. Fletcher stepped forward. "The lady and I were just getting acquainted. She's agreed to come north with me as my wife." "I've agreed to nothing," Vivian countered, her green eyes flashing with defiance. Vaughn set his hat on the counter, his movements deliberate. "Doesn't sound like the lady's interested." "This ain't your concern, Cowboy," Fletcher growled. "Actually," Vaughn said, his voice level but firm, "I believe it is. Miss Keller and I have an understanding." Vivian's eyes widened in surprise. "What understanding?" Benjamin demanded. Vaughn moved to stand beside Vivian. "I asked your father for permission to court her before he passed. Said I needed to establish myself first." It was a lie, but one told with such conviction that even Vivian almost believed it. "First I'm hearing of it," Benjamin said suspiciously. "Your father was a private man," Vaughn replied smoothly, "and I've been away driving cattle to Kansas City. Just got back." He turned to Vivian, his eyes conveying a silent message. "I'm sorry I wasn't here sooner." Vivian, grasping the lifeline he'd thrown her, nodded. "It's true, Benjamin, father approved." "Well, he never told me," Benjamin said, but doubt had crept into his voice. Fletcher wasn't so easily deterred. "I've made an offer of $500 to clear your brother's debts." "What are you offering, Cowboy?" Vaughn didn't hesitate. $800, and Miss Keller's freedom to choose." The room fell silent. Benjamin's eyes widened at the sum, his earlier objections evaporating at the prospect of more money. "800, Fletcher scoffed. "For a slip of a girl from a failing store." "For the woman I intend to marry," Vaughn replied steadily. "If she'll have me." Vivian stared at Vaughn, scarcely believing what was happening. She had always found the quiet cowboy handsome, had even caught herself watching for his arrival with the cattle drives. But this declaration, even if it was just for show, sent her heart racing. Benjamin looked between the two men, weighing his options. "800 clears all my debts and then some." "This is ridiculous," Fletcher sputtered. "You can't just—" "I believe I can," Vaughn interrupted, reaching into his vest to produce a money clip. He counted out the bills on the counter. $800. "I trust that settles any arrangement you thought you had." Fletcher glared at Vaughn, then at Benjamin, who was already reaching for the money. "You're making a mistake, girl," he said to Vivian. "This cowboy will leave you high and dry once he's had his fill." "I'll take my chances," Vivian replied, finding her voice at last. With a final dark look, Fletcher and his companions departed, the bell jingling angrily as the door slammed behind them. As soon as they were gone, Vivian turned to Vaughn. "Mr. Pierce, I don't know how to thank you." "No need for thanks," he said, his expression solemn. "But we should talk." Benjamin, counting his windfall, looked up. "You two really have an understanding." "No," Vivian admitted. "But Mr. Pierce just saved me from a fate I can't even bear to contemplate." "Consider it a loan," Vaughn said to Benjamin. "You'll pay me back every cent." His tone made it clear this wasn't a suggestion. Benjamin scowled but nodded. "Fine. But what happens now? Fletcher will be back in town, and he's not a man who takes kindly to being crossed." Vaughn considered this. "Miss Keller comes with me, at least until this blows over." "Where?" Vivian asked, surprised. "My ranch up near the Big Horn Mountains. It's a 3-day ride, but you'll be safe there." Vivian hesitated, looking around the store that had been her home for all her life. "I can't just leave." "You can and you will," Benjamin said, suddenly eager to be rid of her now that he had the money. "Pierce is right. Fletcher won't take this lying down. Best you're not here when he returns." Vivian realized with a pang that her brother was more concerned about keeping the money than her safety. "I'll need to pack my things." "Do it quickly," Vaughn advised. "We should leave within the hour." As Vivian hurried to gather her belongings, Vaughn turned to Benjamin. "If any harm comes to your sister because of your actions, there won't be a place far enough for you to hide." "Do we understand each other?" Benjamin swallowed hard, nodding. "Perfectly." Within the hour, Vivian had packed her most essential belongings into 2 small trunks. She changed into a practical riding skirt and jacket, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and excitement. She had never ventured more than 20 miles from Sweetwater in her entire life. Vaughn loaded her trunks onto a pack horse and helped her mount a gentle mare he had purchased from the livery. "She's yours now," he said. "Her name is Daisy." "I can't accept." "You can and you will," he said, echoing her brother's words but with kindness rather than dismissal. "It's a 3-day journey. You'll need a horse you can trust." They departed as the sun began its westward descent, the road ahead stretching into territory unknown to Vivian. She looked back once at the town of Sweetwater, at the store that had been her father's pride, now left in the hands of her wastrel brother. "Will I ever return?" she asked softly. Vaughn, riding beside her on his sturdy bay gelding, considered her question. "That will be your choice, Miss Keller. I meant what I said about your freedom." The first day of travel passed in relative silence. Vivian, too overwhelmed by the sudden change in her circumstances to engage in much conversation. They made camp that evening in a sheltered grove near a creek, where Vaughn efficiently set up a small tent for her privacy. As they sat by the campfire eating a simple meal of beans and bacon, Vivian finally found her voice. "Why did you help me, Mr. Pierce?" Vaughn poked at the fire with a stick, sending sparks spiraling into the darkening sky. "Your father was a good man. He helped me when I first came through Wyoming with nothing but the clothes on my back and dreams of my own ranch." He looked up at her. "And no decent man could stand by and watch a woman being sold off like cattle. I'm not sure how I'll ever repay you. There's nothing to repay. Once we reach my ranch, you can decide what you want to do. Stay as long as you need, or I can arrange passage to Denver or even back east if that's your wish." Vivian studied him in the firelight. She had seen Vaughn Pierce perhaps a dozen times over the years, but they had never exchanged more than pleasantries. Now she was trusting him with her life and future. "Tell me about your ranch," she said. A smile softened his features. "It's not much yet, but it's good land. 3,000 acres along the eastern slope of the Big Horns. Cabins small but solid. Got about 200 head of cattle, though I'm hoping to double that by next year." His eyes reflected the dancing flames as he spoke of his dreams. "The winters are hard, but spring in those mountains." He shook his head, words failing him. "It sounds wonderful," Vivian said, finding herself genuinely interested. "How did you come to own it?" "Started as a hired hand on neighboring spreads, saved every penny. 4 years ago, I won a high-stakes poker game in Cheyenne. Used the winnings as a down payment, worked double time to make the rest." "You gamble." Vivian couldn't keep the disapproval from her voice. Thinking of her brother's destructive habit, Vaughn chuckled. "That was the only time. Figured if I was going to risk everything, it should be for something worthwhile." The night grew cold and Vivian retired to her tent, wrapped in a wool blanket Vaughn had provided. She lay awake for hours, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the wilderness and wondering what the future held for her now that she had escaped a fate worse than death. The second day of travel brought them into more rugged country, the distant peaks of the Big Horn Mountains visible on the horizon. As they rode, Vivian began to ask questions about ranch life, about the challenges and rewards of carving a home from the wilderness. "It's not an easy life," Vaughn admitted, "especially for a woman used to town comforts." "I'm stronger than I look," Vivian replied, "and I'm not afraid of hard work." "Never thought you were," he said with a smile that made her heart beat a little faster. By evening, a camaraderie had developed between them, the initial awkwardness giving way to comfortable conversation. They made camp near a natural spring, and after dinner, Vaughn produced a battered harmonica from his saddlebag. "Do you mind?" he asked, and at Vivian's encouraging nod, he began to play a haunting melody that seemed to capture the vastness of the land around them. Vivian closed her eyes, letting the music wash over her. For the first time since her father's death, she felt a sense of peace. "That was beautiful," she said when he finished. "What is it called?" "Don't rightly know," Vaughn admitted. "Just something I hear in my head sometimes when I'm out on the range." "You composed it." Vivian was impressed. He shrugged, suddenly self-conscious. "Just notes strung together." "You're a man of hidden talents, Mr. Pierce." "Vaughn," he said. "If we're going to be traveling together, you might as well use my given name." "Then you must call me Vivian," she replied, the intimacy of the exchange bringing warmth to her cheeks. That night, as she lay in her tent, Vivian found herself thinking not of the brother who had betrayed her or the life she had left behind, but of the quiet strength and unexpected gentleness of the cowboy who slept just a few yards away, beneath the star-filled Wyoming sky. The third day of their journey brought both challenges and revelations. Mid-morning, they encountered a small band of Cheyenne hunters. Vivian tensed, stories of Indian raids flashing through her mind, but Vaughn greeted them in their own language, exchanging words she couldn't understand. "Friends," he explained as they rode on. "They warned us of a storm coming. We'll need to push harder to reach the ranch before it hits." "You speak their language." Vivian was constantly discovering new facets to this man. "Enough to get by. Spent a winter with them when I first came west. They taught me how to survive out here." As predicted, dark clouds began to gather by early afternoon, and the wind picked up, carrying the scent of rain. Vaughn pushed their pace, and by late afternoon they crested a ridge that revealed a valley below. In the distance, Vivian could make out a cabin with several outbuildings, smoke rising from the chimney. "Your ranch," she said, a statement rather than a question. Vaughn nodded, pride evident in his expression. "Welcome to Whispering Pines." They arrived at the cabin just as the first heavy raindrops began to fall. An older man emerged from one of the outbuildings, hurrying to meet them. "About time you got back, boss," he called. "Was beginning to think you'd decided to settle in Sweetwater for good." "Had some unexpected business, Hank," Vaughn replied, dismounting and moving to help Vivian from her horse. "This is Miss Vivian Keller. She'll be staying with us for a while." Hank's eyebrows rose, but he touched the brim of his hat respectfully. "Madam, welcome to Whispering Pines." The cabin was small but surprisingly comfortable, with a main room that served as both kitchen and living area, and two small bedrooms off to one side. A fire crackled in the stone fireplace, filling the space with warmth. "It's not much," Vaughn said, suddenly self-conscious as he watched Vivian take in her new surroundings. "It's wonderful," she replied honestly. The cabin was clean and well-built, with windows that looked out over the valley and distant mountains. "Did you build it yourself?" "Hank and I did, yes. Took us most of a summer." He showed her to the smaller of the two bedrooms. "This will be yours. I'll sleep in the bunkhouse with Hank." "I can't put you out of your own home," Vivian protested. "It's no trouble. I spend half my nights out there anyway when we're busy with the herd." As the storm raged outside, Vivian helped prepare dinner, finding comfort in the domestic task. The three of them ate together, Hank regaling her with stories of their early days on the ranch, including several mishaps that had Vaughn shaking his head in embarrassment. "Don't believe half of what he says," Vaughn warned her with a grin. "Oh, I believe every word," Vivian replied, enjoying the easy camaraderie between the two men. Later, as Hank retired to the bunkhouse, Vaughn and Vivian sat by the fire, the storm still howling outside. "Thank you," Vivian said softly. "Not just for rescuing me, but for making me feel welcome here." Vaughn studied her face in the firelight. "You're welcome to stay as long as you like. The ranch could use a woman's touch." He paused, realizing how that sounded. I know what you mean," Vivian assured him. "And I'd like to earn my keep while I'm here. I'm good with numbers and I can cook and clean. I'm even willing to learn ranch work if you'll teach me." "We'll figure it all out," Vaughn promised. "For now, just rest and get your bearings." In the days that followed, Vivian settled into life at Whispering Pines. She took over the household management, bringing order to the bachelor-run ranch. She kept the books, revealing a talent for business that soon had Vaughn consulting her on financial decisions. She also insisted on learning outdoor skills, and Vaughn found himself teaching her to ride properly, to shoot a rifle, and even basic cattle handling. She was a quick study, her determination outweighing her initial awkwardness. "You're a natural," he told her one afternoon as she successfully herded a group of calves into a corral. Vivian laughed, her face flushed with exertion and pride. "I'm not sure about that, but I'm enjoying learning." Weeks passed, and spring bloomed across the valley. Wildflowers carpeted the meadows, and new calves dotted the pastures. Vivian found herself falling in love with the land, with the rhythm of ranch life, and, increasingly, with the man who had saved her from a terrible fate. For his part, Vaughn watched Vivian's transformation from a shopkeeper's daughter to a capable rancher's partner with admiration and growing affection. Her laughter brightened his days, her questions challenged his thinking, and her presence in his home filled a void he hadn't acknowledged until now. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the mountains in gold and crimson, Vaughn broke a comfortable silence. "Have you given any thought to what you want to do next?" Vivian's heart sank. Was he asking her to leave? "I thought I was being useful here." "More than useful," he assured her quickly. "The ranch has never run better. Hank says we're making twice the profit we did last year, thanks to your bookkeeping." "Then why are you asking about my plans?" Vaughn shifted in his chair, uncharacteristically nervous. "Because I need to know if they might include staying here permanently." Vivian's breath caught. "Are you offering me a position, Mr. Pierce?" "I'm offering you a partnership," he said, his voice low. "In every sense of the word." Their eyes met, and Vivian saw in his gaze all the feelings that had been growing between them these past months. "Are you asking me to marry you, Vaughn?" "I am." He reached for her hand. "Not because I saved you from Fletcher, or because you're good with the books, or even because Hank's cooking was terrible before you came." This drew a laugh from her. "But because I can't imagine this place or my life without you in it anymore." Tears filled Vivian's eyes. "When Benjamin tried to sell me, I thought my life was over. Instead, it was just beginning." She squeezed his hand. "Yes, I'll marry you, Vaughn Pierce." He pulled her gently to her feet and into his arms, his kiss tender but filled with promise. When they finally separated, both breathless, he pressed his forehead to hers. "I should probably tell you that I've been half in love with you for years." "What?" Vivian pulled back in surprise. Vaughn smiled sheepishly. "Every time our cattle drive came through Sweetwater, I'd find an excuse to visit the store. Bought more supplies than I needed just to exchange a few words with you." "I had no idea," Vivian said, though she remembered now how she had always looked forward to his visits, how her heart had quickened at the sight of him entering the store. "Your father knew," Vaughn admitted. "That part wasn't entirely a lie. I did speak to him once last year before he took ill. Asked if he'd object to me courting you when I got back from Kansas City." "What did he say?" "Said I'd better make sure my ranch was worthy of his daughter first." Vaughn gestured to the land around them. "I've been working double time ever since, hoping to create something you might be proud to call home." Vivian felt tears threatening again. He would have approved, Vaughn, and so do I. They were married a month later in the small church in the nearest town, with Hank as best man and the minister's wife as witness. The celebration afterward at Whispering Pines drew neighbors from miles around, curious to meet the woman who had captured the heart of the reserved rancher. As summer turned to fall and fall to winter, Vivian and Vaughn built a life together that exceeded both their dreams. The ranch prospered under their joint management, expanding to include sheep as well as cattle, an innovation that initially raised eyebrows but proved profitable. Word reached them occasionally of Benjamin's continued misfortunes in Sweetwater. He had lost the store to gambling debts within a year of Vivian's departure, confirming her decision to build a new life far from her brother's destructive influence. Their first child, a daughter, was born the following spring, her arrival coinciding with calving season in a way that Vaughn declared was perfect timing. "She's already got the rhythm of ranch life," he said proudly, cradling his infant daughter as Vivian looked on with love. 2 years later, a son joined their family, followed by another daughter the year after that. Whispering Pines expanded to accommodate their growing family, the original cabin incorporated into a larger house that echoed with children's laughter. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Vaughn presented Vivian with a deed. "What's this?" she asked, unfolding the document. "Keller's General Store," he said. "It came up for auction last month. I thought you might want to decide its future." Vivian stared at the deed to her childhood home, emotions warring within her. "How did you manage this?" "We can afford it now," he said simply. "The ranch is doing well enough that we could reopen the store if you wanted, hire someone to run it, or sell it. It's your decision." Vivian considered the possibilities, then smiled. "Let's donate it to the town, make it a library. Sweetwater needs one, and it would be a fitting tribute to my father." Vaughn pulled her into his arms. "Have I told you today how much I love you?" "Yes," she laughed. "But I never tire of hearing it." As they stood on their porch that evening, watching their children play in the yard, and the sun set behind the mountains that had become home, Vivian reflected on the strange twist of fate that had brought her here. Her brother's attempt to sell her future had instead given her the freedom to find it in a land of endless sky, in work that fulfilled her, and in the arms of a cowboy who had claimed her heart as surely as she had claimed his. No regrets. Vaughn asked, seeming to read her thoughts as he often did. Vivian leaned into his embrace, her heart full. "Not one," she answered truthfully. "Every step, even the painful ones, led me exactly where I was meant to be."